So here are 6 uncomfortable truths about the rich you need to hear. If you watch till the end, you will get the one that ties them all and supercharges all of them. The first uncomfortable truth: they're different. And this is a core principle. What do I mean by this? As human animals, we tend to follow the herd. We want to fit in, we want to bond with our peers, and we want to win their approval and respect. What happens as a consequence is this: we tend to copy the mindsets, the habits, and the behavior of others for the mere fact that they are doing it. Here's a story to illustrate this. Scientists put a chimpanzee in a group that had an ineffective way of cracking nuts. And as a result, the chimpanzee learned that ineffective way. Let's call this group the poor people group. Then the scientists took the chimpanzee and moved it into a group that was using a much more effective way of cracking nuts. So what happened? The chimpanzee started using the more effective way of cracking nuts so he could fit in with that group. So here's why this is important from my perspective. We should not care if we need to be different. If we follow the path of the many, we will get the results of the many. I don't want that. And neither do you, I assume. To be in the top 1%, we must familiarize ourselves with their modus operandi, so we can hack our way to wealth. What's more interesting is that between them, we won't be different. We will be just like them. Personally, I am comfortable with being different and with acting differently because I spend most of my time surrounded by wealthy people. And that doesn't mean that I'm surrounded physically by them, but at an intellectual level, I consume most of my content from these people. Second uncomfortable truth is that they are very comfortable with money. Here's an uncomfortable truth embedded in this uncomfortable truth. Yeah, inception. Money is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Money only amplifies who you are at your core. If you're a great person at your core, it will only amplify that. If you're an asshole, on the other hand, it will amplify that. So the wealthy are very comfortable about money because they know this. They are comfortable thinking about money, they're comfortable talking about money, and they are comfortable planning their money. They are comfortable in their money environment. They are aware that money does not solve all their problems, but it solves most of their money problems. They don't want money for the money's sake. They want money for what money can do for their lives and for the lives of those around them. That means better healthcare, protection from inflation, protection against emergencies, and a whole host of things. The takeaway for me: be very comfortable with money, study money. A third uncomfortable truth: they take responsibility. The rich take responsibility for their faith, for their own circumstances. If they're in a shitty situation, they know it's their fault and they acknowledge it. They recognize that they're the product of their own actions. They are the product of their own circumstances. Why do they do this? Because it brings power back to them. By taking responsibility for their circumstances, they have the power to change their circumstances. It puts them in control of their own fate, their own destiny. Here's why this is important from my perspective. If I don't like where I am, it is my responsibility to change my circumstances. It is my responsibility to take the actions necessary to get out from where I am at that point to a better place. It's not because of the government, it's not because of my employer, it's not because I'm not paid enough, it's not because taxes are too high. Just like Jim Rohn said, don't wish it was easy, wish you were better. We are the master of our own fates, the captains of our souls. Fourth uncomfortable truth: they read a lot. I know you heard this 1,000 times, but I guarantee you never heard this version of it. The rich were not born curious. They nurtured their curiosity. How? By reading what they loved until they loved to read. At first, it does not matter what we read. What matters is getting those repetitions in. It's the act of reading that matters. So the average 1%er reads about 30 minutes to 1 hour per day. And they do this for their own self-improvement. So at an average reading speed, this translates into an average of 40 pages per day, 1,200 pages per month, and 14,400 pages per year, or about 48 books. In contrast, poor people read about 1 book per year, and that's mostly fiction. I mean, not even self-improvement fiction. Yeah, there's that genre too. There's a link to a book like that in the description below. Here's why this is important from my perspective. I can learn decades of one's experience in a week. I mean, do you even realize that someone is taking years to distill their own experience in a book that we can consume in a week? Man, we should be grateful as fuck for that. Plus, here's the magic from my experience. You never know how your brain will connect the dots from the books that you read. Like, I read 3 books and okay, the information was alright, I got it in. But then I read the 4th one and my brain was like a fireworks machine. Like, ideas and connections sparked out of nowhere. The 5th uncomfortable truth. They have a long-term focus and they think in long-term time frames. Why? The short-term lane is crowded. They know there is a lot of competition by thinking short-term. However, the long-term lane is empty. There's little competition in it. I mean, just think about it. How many of your friends are thinking in 5 to 7 year time frames? Few, right? Right. From my experience, most people think in 1 to 6 months time frames. Here's why this is important from my perspective. By extending the time frame, I have a greater chance of winning the wealth game. Thinking long term, exercising patience, and delayed gratification increases my chances of reaching the top 1%. I can plan my long-term actions, financial goals, and investments. I can even take year-long learning opportunities to increase my income and increase my investment returns. By acting like this, the sky is the limit and the time is my friend. Living below means in the short term for massive wealth in the long term? Count me in. Using the surplus to buy cash flowing assets? Count me in. Reaching financial freedom status? Count me in. Can I also count you in? The 6th uncomfortable truth, and the one that ties them all, is they take massive action in the short term. So they are long-term patient and short-term impatient. And this translates into long-term big goals and short-term micro goals and daily micro actions. So what they do is that they take massive daily action, they fail, they gain the experience, and they improve at massive speed. What a poor person might do in a week, they do in a day. Now imagine the amount of work that compounds in a year, in 2, in 10. Here's why this is important for me. First of all, excellence is doing basic things extraordinarily well, repeatedly. So by taking massive action in the short term, I can learn the basics a lot faster. Like Bruce Lee said, don't fear a man that practiced 10,000 kicks one time, fear the man that practiced one kick 10,000 times. Besides improving with massive speed, taking daily action also shows respect for the most valuable asset that we have, time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. The difference between the wealthy and the poor is that the wealthy use those 24 hours much more productively. They simply do a lot more shit in this time, which leads to gaining experience a lot faster. They avoid motion and they focus on action. Now let me illustrate the difference between motion and action. Researching the best plan to work out and gain muscle, that's motion. What will deliver the results is lifting the weights. While some motion is required because part of the research is required, what will actually deliver the results is the act of doing. I hear you saying, what's the best moment to take massive action? Well, the best moment was a year ago. The second best one was yesterday. The third best one is today. So if you enjoyed this video, you might also like this other video that I made. And until next time, take care and have a wonderful day. Peace.